Welcome one and all to Last Stop Penn Station podcast featuring Cary Silkin and Ian Riccaboni. They dive deep into Cary's wealth of stories, and no subject is off limits. From the world of wrestling to his ticket agency, growing up in New Jersey, drug-fueled underground days, hustling in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and endless days and nights in New York City, every story is worth telling.
Happy New Year. Welcome, everyone, to Last Stop Penn Station. Ian and Cary with you. Happy New Year, Cary.
Happy New Year, Ian.
We made it. We made it to 2021.
Oh, Simmons.
I heard a rumor that you're in a tank and you got a crank.
I do have a crank. You know, my back's been acting up. I don't know if it's the weather. I'm hoping it is. You haven't heard me complain much about my back lately, but it's been bothering me the last 24 hours. I'm, worried about lamb chop. But yet, I want to express some gratitude. And there's been, over the last, since we got together a week ago, there's always a number of deaths, but there was a number of deaths in the wrestling world, and also the great Phil Necro.
Right.
Since we were talking about Jim Bouton a little, he was a knuckleballer, right?
And I mentioned his brother Joe a few weeks ago with the sandpaper.
Were they both knuckleballers?
They were, yeah.
Interesting. But Phil Necro passed away, but, he was an older man, as well as rock star, the great Leslie West from Mountain.
Yeah, it's one of Howard Stern's favorites, one of my dad's favorites, too.
Yeah, I mean, did I ever see Leslie West? Maybe as a special guest at some show. But
that Mississippi Queen lick is iconic, one of the greatest in rock and roll history.
Right. There was I noticed my buddy Martin Barr, original Jethro Tull guitarist, he went out of his way to pay tribute to Leslie West. He was an early influence. Tull opened up for them, in 68 or 69, and a lot of people consider Leslie West one of the unheralded rock gods, guitar gods. And then in wrestling, we lost Danny Hodge.
Right.
I mean, he was almost 90 years old, but I'm sure they talk about a legendary guy.
Amazing Olympian from Oklahoma. I mean, amateur, pro, you name it. It could smash an apple in his hand. He was that grip strength.
Right, or a pair of pliers.
Yeah.
And he was also one of the, I think, besides Hulk Hogan, you probably have it, the Sports Illustrated cover.
Yeah, he was the first wrestler.
Right. So Danny Hodge was on the cover of Sports Illustrated due to his amateur background. Later, when WWF was exploding with Cyndi Lauper and Mr. T and everything, and Hulk Hogan was at his peak, they actually put Hulk Hogan on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Right, with the great purple background. It's
you
a
have
Matt Mania. Yeah, I do. It's a wonderful cover.
And the last one, Brodie Lee, John Huber, who was in Ring of Honor for a number of months. That was a shocker.
It was just 41 years old, and I mean, that's how old my brother is. And I can't imagine losing my brother. I can't imagine losing somebody that young in my life.
Right. So I didn't know. I saw it on Twitter, and I made a meager R.I.P., Brodie Lee. And what was that, like 3 days ago?
Yeah, I think it was Saturday night.
We're recording this on a Tuesday, so that was.
I try and follow as much as I can with wrestling, but with kids, with work, you can't watch everything. I was hoping and praying that it was some sort of just fun, goofy storyline where in the storyline the Dark Order did something. I was just hoping I fell out of the loop and that I didn't read the posting close enough and that there was okay, this is a joke or this is the storyline. Unfortunately, that part never came.
No, and during his time in Ring of Honor, that was when we were doing the HDNet tapings.
Right.
And I was talking earlier to Kevin Sullivan, who called me to ask, did you know Brodie Lee? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I knew him, but our phone conversation tonight's probably going to be longer than the amount of time I spoke to him. It was just like one of these, hey, how you doing? And I don't know why he didn't work out. That was Adam Pearce was booking at the time, not blaming Adam, but it just didn't gel. Or maybe he got the WWE offer also. Because a guy of his size, right, and he was good in the ring. Yeah. He would have been a great guy for ROH to keep, which is easy to say now.
Sure.
But, that's so sad. And after that happened, I didn't even really want to look at social media. Or I found it, I took a couple of days off from posting anything, or not until last night when we had the watch party. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I went to a social media moratorium for myself. It was just, I certainly don't want to post anything. It made everything, it made my problems, my back problems, my lamb chop problem, my lack of activity problems, very small problems, just terrible and apparent. I mean, I never knew this. No one had a bad thing to say about him. Mm-hmm. Good family man, and our hearts go out to his family.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps put things in perspective. I think you, myself, and AJ, and we've been spared the brunt of a lot of the pandemic, and there are many others, some folks that are listening that have not, and we've been some of the lucky ones during this.
Right.
And not saying any of these deaths were related. I don't believe they were. I think Phil Negro had passed from old age. Same thing with Danny Hodge. And unfortunately, Brodie Lee was battling a rare lung condition not related to COVID. His wife's statement said at the Mayo Clinic they were trying to treat it, and it's one of these things where even as all of this other tragedy happens, this was kind of a tough week because it was compounded by things that weren't even related to the continued tragedy of COVID.
And on top of it, with the Christmas week and everything. So I'm grateful that we're able to get together and do this. This has just been such a rough year and for everybody. And I'm grateful that we've been able to get together, do this podcast, get these crazy stories out there.
And I'm hoping because it's New Year's, you got a crazy one to pull us out by our bootstraps today. Last week we were talking about we had a nice clean one last week for Christmas, and it's New Year's, and I'm excited because I heard sex last week. I heard the word sex. You mentioned the word drugs. I know we have been promising.
Yeah, we'll try to throw some good old sex and drugs at the people to get their minds off things before we. Nothing wrong with some good old sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
There you go.
Before we're all passing away.
There you have it.
Me before you, hopefully me before anyone you guys. But the Monday night watch party.
Yeah.
Was really good. You're going to have to rattle off all the names.
Yeah, we had 14 wrestlers.
Right. Let's talk about the guys from the dojo.
Sure.
They did a really... folks who, the majority of our listeners are wrestling fans, I'm safe to say. But so the wrestling fans out there, if you didn't see this match with these four guys who... I don't think they were all making their Ring of Honor debut.
No, just Eric Martin, I believe. I think Eric Martin was the only one making his official debut. The others had competed, and that was the fun thing about this match. They had all competed with sort of personas and what's referred to as a gimmick. And in this match, they were stripped down. They were literally in black trunks, black boots, black knee pads, black wrist tape, and they were there to wrestle. And it was really nice to see.
Yeah, and it was also nice to see Will Ferrara, because these are guys, there's an unsung hero behind the scenes. Will had, not saying he's never going to wrestle again, but he had has done some very good stuff in ROH with Rhett Titus and on his own. And then he sort of morphed into a behind-the-scenes guy. Yeah. And he's the head trainer at the ROH dojo?
Yes, he's the head trainer there. And he runs the gorilla. I don't think anybody would mind me saying this. He runs what's called the gorilla position at Ring of Honor. So he does timing cues in terms of lights, music, sound. He works with production in that way to send the wrestlers out. And he does a lot of things behind the scenes. And he's great with feedback and things like that, and a real asset to Ring of Honor. And hadn't seen him on camera since Madison Square Garden. I don't know if you knew that. So it's been that long.
He was in the
Honor Rumble, yeah, which is very nice for a guy that's from New York.
Yes,
thanks, Will is.
So the four guys were Eric Martin.
Eric Martin teamed with Ken Dixon, and who I always get confused with somebody else who's on our production team. I won't mention his name because they look very similar. And then they took on Dante Caballero and Joe Keys. Dante and Joe won, which earned them a shot against SOS on ROH Week by Week, which is another good match you can go out and see. Well,
they did a good job. I tried to instant message them to, I didn't try, I did, to congratulate them and let them know that I was watching.
Yeah.
And the crazy 10-man match. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah. Oh, geez, I'll be remiss if I start to name the names.
While you're thinking of it, I liked, it was like we spoke last week about the Briscoes have separated for the time being.
Right.
And we were mentioning how they wrestled each other once in the UK and probably on the Indies also.
And once for the world title in Ring of Honor.
Right. And then we were at Final Battle, they were doing their own things. So I liked the promo video with them opening the presents. So I've given you about 90 seconds to try to remember.
So if I remember correctly, the winning team was, and don't shoot me, was Jay Briscoe, Flip Gordon, John Walters, PCO with the big moonsault to win, and I think the Beer City Bruiser.
Okay.
It was either Bruiser or Malonis. So John Walters looked great again, too. He's a guy that hasn't lost a step, hasn't lost a beat, and it'd be nice to see him
just lost a little hair.
Yeah, that's happened today. Happens to the best of us.
I should talk.
And that was a really fun match. That's always my favorite match. A little disappointed Cheeseburger wasn't in it this year. He's usually the big fan favorite in that match. And it got to the point where Jay Lethal, who once regretted having Cheeseburger on his team, was begging that his last package in 2018 would have Cheeseburger's name in it. And it did. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. But that match is always a crowd pleaser. And the fans, it's a shame the fans weren't in the building because that one really always has we have a lot of fun with the fans.
Well, it was a good way to end the Ring of Honor TV year. And what are we looking at for this coming week?
This one's cool. And by cool, you're going to see never before seen footage from Las Vegas from March. And
that's right.
So we're airing matches that were filmed when we were at the early stages of the pandemic, when we knew, okay, it's canceled. And
you had dropped me off, you and Todd, after that fabulous dice round we had at the beautiful Stratosphere.
And we had Lady Luck.
Lady Luck.
Lady Luck was there.
On a good roll. And I was one of the first to get there, and I was one of the first to get out of there. And there were some matches taped, and I interrupted you.
No, there was 4 matches taped. You will see 3 of them on television. You'll see the fourth on YouTube as YouTube exclusive. They're really good matches. You'll see Flip Gordon versus Bandito. You'll see Jay Lethal versus Mark Haskins. You'll see this huge 10-man mixed tag with the return of Grizzly Redwood to Ring of Honor, which I was looking forward to seeing during Past versus Present. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it there, but thankfully he was there for the taping, and that was on a voluntary basis. So we knew at the time that the pandemic was going to shut things down. Everybody who had been part of the group had already been around each other, so there was already cross-contamination at that point. But it was voluntary. If you wanted to choose to participate, you could, and you get placed in these matches. And those were the matches that we had. We had one more. I'm drawing a blank right now, so it'll be a surprise for everybody.
Yeah, well, we're lucky we escaped without being infected. I mean, I was referring to that dice roll at the Stratosphere. Right. Now, this lady had a 30-minute roll.
She did.
And it was you and me and Todd Sinclair.
Yeah.
And but as what happens at the craps table is you're slapping five and hugging people you don't even know.
Blowing on the dice and yelling and
I ran down and hugged the woman. Keep going, honey lamb. So we were lucky to escape that.
Yeah, really were. And thinking about that, I mean, they traced some of the diaspora of COVID from Vegas around that time. And so it's amazing that everybody on that crew, no one ended up getting it from that trip.
And a lot of guys stayed.
Right. I mean, poor Slex flew all the way to Los Angeles and then got the word and he flew back. But our UK talent, they just couldn't get another flight. So they had to keep their original flights.
And nobody really knew how serious it was. Because guys on the, hey, I'm in Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm booked to stay here through Sunday.
Yeah.
Let's party, Vegas style.
Right.
And so it's fortunate that everyone is, escaped unscathed.
Yeah.
Because it's a hotbed of filth to start with.
Right. I knew something was up when they were willingly blocking chairs. So when we dropped you off on that night, I went back to my room. I saw Caprice. I said, Caprice.
And I was telling you guys, get out.
Yeah.
Get out of town.
And on the way back, Todd helped me and Ring of Honor paid for it. They adjusted my flight. The quickest I could get back was the next night, which was about a day and a half earlier than I was supposed to. But I told Caprice, there's a flight from Charlotte that leaves in 2 hours. Change it now. Go home. Be with your family. And he did. And the next morning I woke up and I went to the Dunkin' Donuts in the beautiful Sam's Town. Beautiful Sam's Town.
You should have bowled the game.
It was still open. But I knew something was wrong. I saw Matt Taven and his beautiful fiancée Lisa. And we walked in and this man sneezed all over the straws. And Matt ran. Matt just literally, he bolted. And when I saw Matt Taven, who's witnessed people bleeding and witnessed TK Orion break his leg, and when he ran because someone sneezed, I knew ball game. And then I walked to the blackjack table, and they were blocking off seats to keep space.
In Sam's Town?
In Sam's Town.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I knew. If they were leaving money on the table, that's...
Because before we went to the Stratosphere, or maybe it was the night before that, you had gotten into town... And I was playing dice. AJ, this Sam's Town is like the Kmart of casinos. Great venue, though.
Yeah. Oh, the soundstage, the arena is wonderful.
The theater that we use,
it's perfect size.
It's like an 800 seats. You could use it, standard stage for a concert. Yet the
great hosts too. They always check you in early. They always get you. They take care of you. It's amazing.
Right, but as far as the rest of the place, talk about it's a nice low budget place. It includes like a bowling alley, a Subway, just fine. A movie theater.
Movie theater, yeah. Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Yeah. One of the few in Las Vegas.
And one of the finest buffets.
Well, I think back, it was me, you, and Bully Ray had a nice steak a couple of times ago. They did. The steak was good.
That's their one fine dining place.
Yeah. It was a nice dinner.
It was a nice dinner.
Yeah.
What else I want to mention here? We've been getting slowly but surely, just like our podcast, the 55 and 5 series,
Right?
Which was your brainchild, which is fun to do, and we're going to add some tonight.
Right.
It's tell the fans.
We're getting some loyal listeners, loyal viewers. A lot on Instagram TV. So if you prefer that to YouTube, check it out at Ian Riccaboni. Thanks to AJ from Basant Creative to help with the chop those videos up real nice. Uploading them to YouTube. The YouTube following not as quick. We're getting hundreds on Instagram TV, but dozens, if that, on YouTube. But we appreciate however you're watching it. The Major Wrestling Figure podcast with Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, Brian Myers, Matt Cardona, they've been talking about it a little bit, which is nice. The fans on their pages have been talking about it. Pat Lepard, who wrote the Great Andre the Giant book, has helped us out. We have Matt Farmer, the wrestling historian from the Seattle area, jumping in.
And there's another guy, I don't know if you've heard his podcast, a guy named Al Getz.
Yes.
What the hell's the name of his podcast? Breaking Down the Territories or something? He's he goes to incredible detail to try to find 1962, the Louisiana Leroy McGurk territory, and figuring out what a month's worth of matches and what towns they were in, and he's flown at his own, no one's going to pay him, at his own expense to various libraries, and he's joined. And it's hard to find people who have the interest level, or you have to be sort of in an older demographic, or else you really want to dig into wrestling history. But it's good. It's good to know history. It's important.
It is. We've had a lot of folks chime in on some of the more notable names like Vern Gagne and Antonina Rocca. But the one that we got the most comments on, believe it or not, was Vic Holbrook, the great actor turned wrestler turned actor.
And it's amazing, as good as your what do you call it?
The safety net.
The safety, right? This cheat sheet. When I know nothing about the guy, Ian has information, and yet with Vic Holbrook, Matt Farmer, and some other people had additional information.
Right. And they've been in contact with his son, and they've been researching their own things, the stalwart on the West Coast, apparently. So those are a lot of fun. We have some names that you'll know, some that you won't know, like Steve McGill. So you learn a little bit about the man who didn't win a match for a year.
Okay.
But that one's already up, and you'll see that one. And some new names that we'll record tonight that'll be out next week. Those will be a lot of fun as well. Because Cary, I got men in hats. That's the theme. I picked out a couple cards with men in hats.
Wasn't that a band?
Men without hats. Okay. But I thought they were going to be managers. They were actually all wrestlers. So
the strangest thing happened the last week. I keep hearing that expression, a hat on a hat.
Yeah. I've heard it more and more.
Is it just, are you just saying that because I said it?
No, Jim Cornette said it months ago.
And on NFL, I heard it 2 or 3 times.
There was a comedian that said it in something very big recently about the art of telling a joke. And he explained it, and that went kind of viral.
So what's the definition of it?
A hat on a hat essentially is when you do something that's good enough to get a laugh, or do something that's good enough to be considered fashionable, or you do something that meets the criteria of what's expected, and you can't really go any further, but then you try something else. And so if you're wearing a hat and you're trying to be an Eagles fan and show you're an Eagles fan by wearing an Eagles hat, you wouldn't put 2 hats on to show you're more of an Eagles fan, right?
Okay.
You just wear 1 hat. Or the context it's been used in by Jim Cornette, if there's a big move, if somebody jumps off a ladder through a table, that would be the hat. If then you pick up your opponent and pile drive them on the apron, you've already killed him with the big, elbow drop off the ladder. You don't need a power drive him on the apron.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
A hat on a hat.
But I've heard it way more.
It's been an epidemic in the pandemic. An epidemic in the pandemic. In other, in our pop culture, we've recently been trying to share some of the things we've been watching. This is right up your alley. I highly recommend, and I forced our producer AJ. Kicking and screaming, no, not at all, because he's always interested in rock and roll history. Mm-hmm. And when I mentioned this band, you don't really think of them as rock and roll, but they're the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
Fantastic special on, I think it's on HBO.
I saw that advertised. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
They had a lot of hits in Australia before they came to the U.S. as a rock group.
They had a lot of hits in Australia. They were little kids. They moved to England.
Oh, wow.
And when the Beatles were at their height, and they had harmonies that were better than the Beatles and as good as... They even did a duet with the Mills Brothers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they had all these early hits and some down period too. Mm-hmm. But even after their early hits... Massachusetts.
Yeah.
They in the 70s during there's like 5 or 6 big ones that I can't name off the top of my head, but they came back with Lonely Days, Lonely Nights, Where Would I Be Without My Woman?
Yeah.
And Blaming It All on the Nights on Broadway.
Oh, yeah.
Right. This is all pre-Saturday Night Fever. Mm-hmm. And 3 years before that, they got invited by Eric Clapton, of all people, because he knew what was good.
Yeah.
Come down to Florida. It'll change your perspective on things. You're in this English, this UK drear.
Yeah.
And they took his advice, and I'm not going to tell you the whole documentary, but the first song that they had a hit with that you associate with, I'm doing the quote sign here, with disco was Jive Talking.
Oh, yeah.
And from there, they had another couple of hits, and then the Saturday Night Fever thing came along.
Wow.
And they had 5 songs in the top 10, which hadn't been done since the Beatles in 67 or 66 or something like that.
Yeah, that might have been in 65 when they held Jimmy Hart off the top spot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The Gentrys would have been in the top 10?
Yeah, the Gentrys were in the top. I think they hit number 2. I think they only got held off by the Beatles.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Check out the Bee Gees documentary, and I've been reading this. It's very long and it's very detailed. How much do you know about Elvis?
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on this book.
Yeah.
I'm in the early stages. I don't know how these people. I was saying to AJ, like, they're just coming up with so much detail just about his childhood and him in school and his girlfriends and what they having a burger and a shake at this particular place, and it's interesting. So that's been my distractions over the last week.
Oh.
How was your Christmas?
It was great. It was nice and quiet, which was good. And it's weird. We talk about kind of blessings and things like that. I was moving too fast for years, and this was the first Christmas where just us and the kids, and it was just us opening presents by the tree. We watched the parade. We watched Christmas shows. We made cookies. It was just nice. It was quiet. It was one of those things. It makes you appreciate when you can see the other folks, but it was just a nice year just to have Christmas just with the kids and Sarah
and they're the perfect age.
Oh,
there they are. Look how nice and quiet they are.
Oh, nice and quiet. It was the only time they've ever sat still in their lives for the picture that was on the Christmas card.
I had a nice Christmas too. It was quiet. Christmas Day I went down to see my god kids, Hog Boy and Sour Lemon. No, Matthew and Jonathan. The Chinese restaurant was open, and Hog Boy was messing around on piano. So we mentioned, I don't know if we mentioned on the podcast, but I know we mentioned last week about that Mick Ronson from Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that Life on Mars stuck in my head.
Right.
So I said to Hog Boy, I go, can you play by ear a little, huh? He goes, well, a little bit. So I had him listen to the great Life on Mars first. Mm-hmm. And while we were listening, he pulled the sheet music up on his iPad. So as we're listening to the song, and he really was getting into it, and as it was getting towards the end, he says, it's one of these things that has 17 million views, and he says, how could 81 people give this a thumbs down when 7,000? How could anyone give this a thumbs down? So that was fun. So he was able to play a little bit of Life on Mars.
Wow.
I tried. Then you would have known better. Me, and AJ would have known better. Me not being a musician, I'm thinking, Billy Joel, the Piano Man. And that should be like easy pickings for him. But even though he had the music, it's not like a straight piano song.
Right.
And
it plays more of a bass line rather than just a piano.
Right. And then I'm like, well, how about we try this? I'm thinking Elton John. And I pulled up Rocket Man.
Okay. And
that was difficult. There's a lot going on in that.
Mm-hmm. I'm impressed though that he played Life on Mars. I mean, that unresolved bridge where you.
I don't know if he did it precisely.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but he got it. He got it. So I had a nice. I went down there, came back here. There was a football game on,
mm-hmm.
and AJ and his lovely lady Melissa came over later that evening, and which brings us to the one other thing we watched. We mentioned Hunter Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a very good documentary about the life of Hunter Thompson.
Oh, wow.
Which was on Amazon Prime or one
mm-hmm.
of these, and so that was my Christmas, and it was very nice.
Oh, wonderful. I was listening to the other Hunter Thompson, the less famous one, and the great band White Reaper.
Okay.
I'm hoping the vaccine, we've got great vaccine news coming. My sister's been vaccinated. My sister-in-law's been vaccinated. They're both in the medical field. My sister-in-law is a nurse practitioner. My sister's a nurse. So fingers crossed that we get that going and keep that going. And that's been my Christmas wish, that we get the vaccinations rolling.
I think it's everybody's.
Yeah.
I just can't want to go too political here, but there's a huge portion of the population that they don't want to take it. Which are probably most of the Trump types.
There's definitely seems to be an equation between those who choose not to wear masks and those who are declining the vaccine at this point. And
I'd be running down the street.
Yeah. No, but I'm excited. Hopefully when the vaccine comes, I have tickets to see White Reaper in May of 2021. They had to postpone, as everybody did, but and it's heartbreaking because for a group like them, they're right on the cusp. They were opening up for Pearl Jam, and then the pandemic. So hopefully, like White Reaper, like Ring of Honor, like everybody, we get this vaccine, we get going, and we have some live audiences again. Because I think we're going to be more appreciative of things like that in 2021.
Absolutely. The one good thing that came out of 2020 for me, and I think I could say for you also, one of the things is this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm putting I'm putting myself bare ass naked on this podcast, and I was looking back on some of the things that we covered. Obviously, the the heart of this podcast, it's my stories, my experiences, but it's my experiences, but it's the characters that I met that made these stories, what they are. And looking back on what we covered, wrestling wise, we did a trilogy of the Puerto Rico magazine adventure, which was pre ROH, and we did episodes about Bruno Sammartino with himself and Ring of Honor, Mick Foley being in Ring of Honor, and Bobby Heenan and Jim Cornette, and I think it's hard to figure out what was the most popular, with downloads and all this, but I think it was the Larry Sweeney one.
I think it was too, and that one was so nice. One of my big lessons in 2020 is make sure you tell people who you love that you love them.
Yes.
Because whether it's Larry Sweeney or Brodie Lee or anyone that's gone too soon, that seemed to be the overwhelming consensus, was that this person was a big part of my life, and then one day they were gone. It was unexpected, and I didn't get to tell them that I loved them or cared about them.
Absolutely. Is that truer words are never spoken. And these rock and roll stories, the Bellucci story, which turned out to be headline.
That was our big break.
Which made it to my run-in with Bellucci, which made it to the New York Post, and my crazy stories with the guys from Rush, and being around the Tull Group, getting thrown off the Jethro Tull tour, and mixing it up with the amazing Kreskin and Sammy Davis in Las Vegas. And speaking of Sammy's, let's not forget Sammy Stewart.
Oh, that's right. That was a very popular episode.
Right.
Yeah.
The Boston Red Sox pitcher.
When Cary through the 86 World Series.
Right.
As I like to frame it.
And then, of course, all the ticket hustling stuff. Whether it was, we really haven't even gotten into the heart of Freddie the Weeper yet, but we keep mentioning him, and Ralph the Mummy, who spent the 8 days in the Big Nipple. One
of the all-time great.
What a great feat.
Is that in the Guinness Book of World Records?
Yeah, once again, go back and check it out. But I remember when I saw Ralph / the Mummy / Susan.
Oh.
And I said, "You were in there for 8 days?" He goes, "Yes, it's a bar." He was like West Indian. I can't replicate the accent. He goes, "You kidding me, man? It's a bargain. I pay $8. Come out to less than $1 a day."
Oh, goodness.
I stay at YMCA, $14. That's bullshit. Here I am, 90 cents. So yeah, all these characters, the Mummy, and of course Pigface Stanley, Mama Pretzel, but by far our most popular was the Camel.
The Camel, absolutely. The Camel, it's ZZ Top. I mean, he just knew how to pick them. WrestleMania 2, you name it. He had some people have what do they say, a gold thumb. He had a... whatever the opposite is.
I fucked.
Oh.
And we also introduced the world to great people like Chester O'Sullivan,
right,
and the wonderful world of throwing glob balls at when your teacher's back is turned to the blackboard. Oh, we were so bad. And not to mention the great Al Rucco of we'll slap a garnish on him. Let the bank worry about it. Fuck them. Oh, the aluminum side. Imagine this. All they cared about was getting the sale turned over to the bank.
Right.
I don't want to seem stupid, but like, well, what does a garnish mean? Hey, Mr. Rucco, what does a garnish mean? My boy, it means that they're fucked. Whoa! Let the bank worry about them. Yeah. And of course, the great Uncle Gunny.
Oh,
and
Uncle Gunny.
And you introduced us to some characters too.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I got a couple more. We talked about Rich and Shelley and Shelley's escapades with the great Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
And the near miss that happened there because of Aunt Kathy. But we haven't even touched on Uncle Doug and his ability to predict Eagles victories. And maybe we'll get to that one day. And it just incredible stuff. We talked about the Allentown Fairgrounds, and we talked about the kind of the coincidental nature. It's bringing you back here to the Lehigh Valley. I was blown away by the Phil Lynott story, and just all the things that happened there, and the Bob Seger, the Bob Seger bus driver, and
just all these happenstances, and talk about gratitude. I should have been dead. I should have been dead 100 times. You
didn't fall asleep behind your house in the freezing cold weather.
Oh, like poor Joe Aarons.
Right.
Great. Yes, his New Year's coming. Right. We have a great New Year's edition. So yeah, Ian wanted. We keep teasing about the sex and drugs. Well, I don't. We definitely, any of these drug stories are not to promote the use of drugs. We're laughing that I should have been dead 100 times. I should have been dead 100 times. Matter of fact, one time, here's a story I haven't told, but one time at the Hoboken Hilton, and I keep threatening to do a Hoboken, which we'll get to.
Sure.
But
I've stayed at the Hoboken Hilton. It's pretty nice.
Not the one I had.
Oh.
On 118 Jefferson Street.
Oh, okay.
So I spent a good amount of time in Hoboken, but I'll just tell this one story quick. And I was on a bender. I was up for 2-3 days.
I was going to say, can you describe what that means? Because I have never consumed literally anything in my life. Maybe some over-the-counter workout products that probably had methamphetamines in them that they didn't say. But other than that, I've never been on a bender or anything.
Well, when your drug of choice is cocaine, and the one's too many and 1,000's never enough, if anything applies to, all drugs are like that, or gambling.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's the same vibe. Yeah. But I was on a bender. I was on a tear. I'd been up, because when you're doing the coke, you just want to do more and more and more. And unless you're going to do something like heroin or some very strong opiates, you could just keep drinking, and it's very hard to turn the curve.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I'd been up for like 3 days. Our good friend Dustin was staying in Hoboken with me. And there was a guy, Big Rick, who was a T-shirt hustler. Mm-hmm. And
we've mentioned him before.
We've mentioned him before. He looks like picture Hacksaw Duggan.
Yep.
So I run into Dustin and Big Rick. Dustin was only 18 or 19. I was 30, and Rick was a few years older than me. And I run into them in the city, and I was at the point where I just wanted to try to crash. I needed something to crash. And these guys were like on the roll going up, like they'd only been out for like a night.
Oh, jeez. And you're on day 2 or 3.
So Rick's like, let's go down to this bar in the village. So we go to this bar, and I run into one of the waiters from Johnny's Italian Restaurant, the drop-off spot where the poor E. Girk had to pick up his tickets.
Yeah.
So one of these waiters happens to be at this bar, and he offered me some downs. It's like I don't even know this. When you're buying, forget about. I'll get to the downs in a second.
Yeah.
But when you're buying these various drugs that you're inhaling in your nose or doing smoking or shooting or whatever you're doing, you don't even know what you're putting in your body.
That's
and
the
you're
craziest
buying
part
them
to
on
me.
the street.
Yeah.
So this guy gives me these downs. I didn't know what they were. It doesn't really matter what they were. So we go back to Hoboken, and Rick and Dustin still had a hearty amount of cocaine. And I just took these pills.
Oh.
Now, I had been up for 3. I figured I'd just, they'd level me out. I don't know what they were. They might have been like Placidils or Secanols, some kind of heavy, wasn't like a Valium where it'd just be like, oh, okay. Or I don't even think they had Xanax back then, but like a
horse
Valium.
tranquilizer.
No, no, these were like, like they would give to someone who's having like a psychiatric fit to just like knock them out. Anyway, we're back at the apartment. I took this shit, and all of a sudden, I knocked one of the beers onto the cocaine. This is one of the mortal sins.
Bro.
Fortunately, the whole package wasn't out, but there was a plate, and Rick, Dustin starts screaming, and Rick's like, "What are you doing?" Anyway, that's the last thing I remembered until this. I remember getting yelled at, and the next thing I remember is feeling cold water going into my face and opening my eyes, and I go, "What the fuck are you doing?" And it was Big Rick. I'm laying in my bathtub, and he says, "What do you mean, what were you doing? You weren't breathing."
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if Rick wouldn't have been there, because Dustin wouldn't have known what to do, that would have been one of many times.
Oh,
so he saved my life.
Well, that messes with your heart when you're up and you're down. Oh, God.
So, not cool, not good.
Oh.
But I live to tell the tale.
Well, and what's crazy about this is you were saying 48th Street, 49th Street, 50th Street. I mean, it was just in plain sight. And we talked about it briefly about kind of the relay system sometimes, where you kind of go to one guy and there would kind of be like a telephone system, not literal telephone, but hey, this guy goes to this guy and so on. But I mean, it was right on the street, right?
It was right on the streets.
This was 80s, 90s?
Yeah. When I was heavily, doing the tickets and being at Madison Square Garden often, I mean, I knew a lot of places to go get Coke, but you wanted places that were convenient, and two of the spots that were in cooperation with the New York City Police Department, Herald Square.
Okay, yeah.
Which I'm sure you've been through, right?
Many
with
times.
The Last Stop on the Penn Station.
Yeah.
Give my regards to Broadway. Remember the Herald Square. Well, during this period was the crack epidemic.
Oh.
And that square where you had hundreds of thousands of commuters and just people going shopping at Macy's and all these other, that little triangular park, all day, all night, guys were there, crack, heroin, and cocaine. Wide open.
Really?
Wide open. I mean, someone was on the take.
Yeah. You had to have been. I mean, that is the busiest place I've ever seen. And I mean, you can hide, but you can't.
Think of all the windows.
Yeah. Absolutely. You could see anybody, anytime, anywhere, if you really wanted to.
Right. I didn't, even though I was right by the garden, they mainly sold crack, and that wasn't my thing. So I knew spots to go get good old powdered cocaine. And the most convenient place to go get it that had the best quality was 50th Street there were hundreds of places, but where I knew, and I knew it was a good deal and it was reliable, was on 50th Street between Broadway and 8th. Now we're talking the Winter Garden Theater with Cats. And I know we'd referenced this
but
before.
Cats was a mega hit.
Right. We're talking the Paramount Plaza, where it's an office building. There's a movie with Jerry Lewis. Oh, and it's not a comedy. That it takes place. It's about a late night TV host. That takes place at the Paramount Plaza, but these guys. The way I found out about it was, I'd been working with Bo, and he had the store at Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium. And it was in the winter, and there was a Jets game. And I worked the game, and this is pre full-time ticket scalping. So the bar we used to hang at, that I used to like to go to, was Dave's 43rd Street, which was right around the corner from Times Square, right across the street from the New York Times building.
Okay.
Did I tell the story right?
No.
Okay. So I didn't have super familiarity with various spots in the city at this point. We're talking like 81, 82. And
when the Jets were bad.
And the Jets were bad. So I'm in Dave's, and Dave's was a reputable place. And it was all these people, like the door was locked after like 6 at night. You know, you had to get buzzed in.
Okay.
It catered mainly to the workers from the New York Times building.
Gotcha.
It catered to reputable pimps and prostitutes.
Oh.
Reputable various lowlifes, but they were high on the lowlife list.
Gotcha. All right.
So I'm in there, and I'm like, I'd made some money with Bo. I maybe had like $150, and so there, I'm like, I want to get some. I was drinking. I go, man, I want to get some Coke. Well, one of these pimps that I would see in the place, you know, he was like a regular. So I just said to this guy, hey, where can we get? He goes, you don't know the Dominicans up on 50th Street? I go, no. He goes, well, how much you looking for? Anyway, I negotiated this deal with him that if I give you for $100 worth, what do you want for it? He goes, just throw me 25. So he says, come on, let's go. So he walks me up Broadway, and as we're getting to the corner, does he have and I'm stereotyping here, fur coat? Oh yeah, not full bore, but close enough.
But that was real. That was the real deal. Okay.
So as we're approaching the corner of 50th and Broadway, the guy says to me, he goes, well, here, give me the money. You know, like I said, well, I thought I was going to come with you. He goes, my man, you're not going to lose sight of me. So I'm like, all right. Now, I'd seen him like a dozen times in the bar.
Sure.
Similar to the story of New Orleans with the tap dance guy.
Right.
So I give him the money. He walks across the street to that plaza. I see him do this. Sit down. He sits with one guy. That guy waves another guy. And within under a minute, he comes back and he hands me the stuff.
Now that's got to be obvious to anybody. Like you said, there's windows everywhere.
Right.
That's got to be. I mean, that's a pulley system of people. I mean, come on.
So what happened was the stuff was good, and when I ran out, which was probably around 11 p.m. that night, I was with a friend of mine, this guy Charlie, and we pooled some money together. I go, well, why don't? I said, I'll go back there. I'll just go on my own. So I went back up Broadway,
oh my God.
and I just And there's this guy, and he goes, the guys just look at me. I'd been hipped by the pimp that they sold 25s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So I go 150, and the guy goes una grande, and he says, go down the other bench. And they came back, and they gave me the $50 piece.
Jeez.
So that was my introduction to the gentleman on 50th Street. So that was, if that was 1982.
Yeah.
Between then and 1990, I must have dropped. I mean, and there were a lot of other spots too. Mm-hmm. I must have dropped, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, in 50s, and it adds up. Because after I got to know them a little, mm-hmm. they were there from noon till midnight.
Oh, they had hours.
And they had shifts.
Wow.
Noon till midnight. Mm-hmm. And 7 days a week.
Wow.
You know what the only day they took off?
What day?
New Year's Eve.
Oh, okay. They might have bigger scores.
Well, New Year's Eve, with all the streets being closed, they were by 3 in the afternoon, they were gone. So, but if you got there at 5 after 12 midnight, mm-hmm. they were gone.
Really?
Right. So they were a sure thing. There was I probably went there 500 times, and only 2 or 3 during the proper hours of business. Yeah. And there was only 2 or 3 times where it was come back in 20 minutes.
I was going to say, is there a kayfabe type?
Yeah, okay. They're re-upping, mm-hmm. or there was a little heat.
Yeah.
And one time they had to move over to 52nd Street for a week. But
is that a turf war or just a fear of the police?
Well, something happened. But, any cop who was on the beat mm-hmm. had to be had to be told. If you were a rookie cop and you had that beat, you had to be told, let these guys just...
Let them be.
Let them be. Not to mention, as I said with the Herald Square thing, there were thousands of windows. And
I've stood there with Tommy Dreamer. You can see, between Macy's, between the like you said, the triangle, you can't be not seen. Okay, so that's 81, 82. Did you have any idea before this? So growing up, this is right after cocaine's heyday, right? Studio 54 is about 76.
It's still in it. Go ahead.
It's still in its boom period. Okay. When's the first time you heard about cocaine, and when was your first sort of introduction to it as a thing, not even as something you consumed? Do you remember reading about it in a magazine or seeing it on TV? Or?
Oh yeah, it was like the stars before I was getting high at all.
Yeah,
you would hear about it, but it was like a luxury drug, and the movie stars, and and it was considered non-addictive and safe.
Oh Jesus.
It was, honestly. It was. Then with the Studio 54 boom, mm-hmm. That was the thing to do. But once I tried it, as we've referenced in earlier episodes, that was my best friend and my girlfriend and my boyfriend and every other friend. But to get back to 50th Street, there was more going on besides those guys.
Really.
Yeah.
Okay.
One night, it must have been 10. I knew better. It must have been quarter. And there were other spots to go, but their stuff was the best value.
It's like McDonald's versus Five Guys. Right. You got to pay, either get something. Yeah.
So I remember going there. It was 5 after 12, and I'm like, oh shit. And then there's 2 other people doing the same, customers going
it's like when you get to
did
Target,
you see them?
It's closed.
Right?
Yeah.
So on this, and that happened a few times. Well, on this particular night, I'm walking down 50th Street. And on 50th Street, there was a bar towards 8th Avenue called Rounders. And what was it? It was a gay male hustler bar.
Cool.
It was a bar that the male street kind of hustlers could work off the street.
Oh, okay.
And so I went in there for the primary purpose of getting a quick couple of vodkas in me because I'm jonesing out. And so I'm at the bar, and a young man comes up to me and, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. And he's like, oh, you're looking for a date? You're looking to hang out? I go, no, I was looking for the Dominican. He goes, oh, they leave at midnight.
Even he knew.
Of course. So he says to me, don't you know Mickey? I go, no, who's Mickey? He goes, he's next door at the hotel. It's 24/7. I'm like, okay. And it was similar to the pimp. I go, well, how does he sell it? Well, 25s and 50s. I go, well, what do you want? He goes, well, just the same kind of thing. Like if you throw me something, right? So in this case, I wasn't going to put the money in his hand.
Yeah.
I'd never seen this guy. I was not hanging out at this bar. So he goes, just come with me. He goes, what's your name? I go, Cary. He goes, all right. He goes, so right next door was this Fleabag hotel. And we go through the lobby, and it was, so this is like 1986-ish, 5-ish, like you see in the movies where they have the keys, like in the hole, right? Well, the guy at the desk is like reading a newspaper, smoking a cigarette. He just, we just walked by.
Yeah.
And I'm following this guy, the hustler's name was Chris. And we walk, and we don't go to the elevator. We go around the bend and down the hallway. And at the end of this little hallway, which had about, 4 or 5 doors, it was the last one straight ahead. Chris knocks on this door, and a guy goes, gruff, goes, who is it? And he goes, it's Chris. He goes, hold on. And the door opens, and here's this man, probably in his mid to late 60s, in a wife beater t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right? Big belly, disheveled gray, baldingish hair, sort of like me, except gray. And he goes, he says, who's that? He goes, oh, Mickey, that's my friend Cary. He's cool. And he goes, all right, come in. So we're in this, so this was one of these places where it was like a communal bathroom. Oh. In other words, you had a room.
Yeah.
That was it.
Oy.
So we do the transaction. And so now I knew that after midnight, I could always go to see Mickey.
Oh, that's not good. That's like when you find the 24/7 casino, or when you find that's. Oh.
Right. Now, also within this time, I discovered and I know we'd reference this, but it's important for pop culture history. And by the way, on Facebook, there's a great group, like 42nd Street, The Deuce.
Oh.
Where I posted some of our episodes that were Times Square-ish related.
Sure.
And so I discovered the Full Moon Saloon, which...
Now that sounds like a hustler bar. The Full Moon?
No.
Yeah, no? Okay.
And this was one of many places that had 3 shifts of cocaine dealers.
Wow.
And there was a variety of places to go. But the Dominicans were like the first choice.
Yeah.
On 50th Street. And the Full Moon, the stuff wasn't that good. And then there was always Mickey, and whose stuff was always the same, which I know might sound odd to you, but people that are doing drugs, it's like our producer, I'm sorry, it was always the same. Whether it was, like, in other words, it should vary. Either it's weaker, it's stronger, it was always the same. Excuse me. So
That leads me to the pharmaceutical conspiracy theory that it's all distributed by the same place. But we don't have time for that, but please continue.
Mickey, I got to know him because, number one, he was a baseball fan.
Okay.
So I would go there sometimes. He didn't like you hanging out, but he would talk to you. Mm-hmm. And so I got to know him, and I would go there, and you were going there 3 a.m, 5 a.m, 7 a.m.
Oh,
and
Cary.
he'd always
bless your heart.
He'd always Cary goes, come on, I'm like Mickey, hold on. And once in a while he'd throw you a free package.
Oh, like the old Subway card. You buy 10, you get 1 free.
Yeah. No credit though.
Okay.
No credit.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, Mickey, he had a girlfriend.
Oh.
And a couple times I went there and I saw this young girl, like 22, 23-year-old girl, who he discovered.
Oh.
And as I got to know him a little more, and then I saw him with this girl, I'm not going to ask any questions. He goes, I'm going to have a baby. He goes, I'm going to be a father.
Wow.
He says to me one time, he goes, her name was, let's say, Leslie. He goes, yeah, Leslie's pregnant. I go, oh, congratulations. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Doesn't seem, and not my, not to speak on anything, but it wouldn't be my first choice for someone to step into parenthood if they're in that occupation and that old.
Well, after he told me that, I'd seen him a number of times. And about 6 months later, although I've seen him many times in between, I went there at some ungodly hour, 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, geez.
And I knock on the door.
Yeah.
And I go, it's Cary. He goes, you got to come back. Come back tomorrow. I'm like, Mickey, come on. Now, sometimes he'd say, I'm waiting to re-up. I was waiting to get more. And I'm like, Mickey. He goes, hold on. Well, he opens the door. And there's Leslie.
Oh, don't tell me. Yeah.
Extremely pregnant.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't finish this part. I think I might know where this is going.
And she was very high.
Oh.
And he's like, we did the transaction, and I left. And when I went back a number of weeks later, he says, it's a boy.
Wow. Okay. All right. I wasn't expecting that ending.
It was
wow.
This girl was smoking crack.
Oh no.
It was terrible. Terrible. But
is that a moment where were you so high at that point that it just flew by you?
No.
Because right now, with clear vision, you clearly see what was happening and what was, but it's gotta break your heart.
No, and of course it was horrible, but they were lucky. The kid was born. The girl went back to where she lived. Mickey would fly out. I think it was Denver for some reason.
Wow.
And that. So that was all going on 50th Street.
When no one, think of all the businessmen. Think of all the tourists. Think of all the.
And when Mickey left, now just hit me. When Mickey would go away to visit his son and his wife.
Yeah, well, I credit to him,
Right. Next door was the gay bar, and next door to that was a deli. And these guys of like some kind of Arabian descent were running this deli. And Mickey tells me, just go see the guys, and says, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. Just go see the guys in the deli. Well, these guys in the deli were so paranoid that when he'd come in and I'd be like, give me 250s. And the guy would be like, oh. He goes, go get a beer. Go get a beer. Like, so in other words, he wanted me
to do a transaction.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that'd be like asking me to do anything remotely. That'd be asking me to run a red light. I'd have that reaction.
So these guys are running it. So yeah, there were all kinds of spots.
I know we're running a little long, so I have some rapid fire for you here. So just very quickly, cocaine was available around Times Square from Macy's, which is on 34th, all the way to 50th-ish. That was a decent, just
and
ballpark.
There's hundreds of places that I'm not even weren't in my circle.
Well, and we talked about Phil Lynn at the Lower East Side.
Right.
And what was going on in the West Village? Anything? I mean, that's LGBT friendly.
Plenty was going on.
In my time, it was marijuana was easy and you could get it anywhere, anytime.
You just had to know the right people.
Wow.
And all these bars were selling it. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Or someone in there was the Coke man. And but real quick, before we end this holiday extravaganza, and it's going to be a good lesson.
Yeah.
As all this stuff was, and I had all these spots, this guy turned me on. This guy Chuck. I was hanging out in Hoboken, and he tells me, he goes, "Oh, you're paying too much." I go, "Well, what?" So at the time,
discount card?
Well, pretty much.
Oh.
In the uptown, like Spanish Harlem, like 150s, 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
This is in the 80s. There was a huge wholesale cocaine scene.
Really?
But I don't want to go up to, part of what I was paying for was the convenience. So this guy, Chuck, takes me up to this place. It was 157th and Broadway.
Okay.
And it was like the first building off the corner. It was a nice building. Mm-hmm. Probably 98% of the people that lived there were hardworking. They were hardworking people. But there was, like all these buildings, there were places where you knocked on the door, they let you in, and all they had there was a table, a couple of chairs, and a scale.
Jeez.
And you had to buy like an 8-ball, like 3.5 grams or more. Oh, wow. But it was cheap. It was like what I would pay with Mickey or the Dominicans for $100 up there, you'd get like 4 times.
Jeez. So
once I found that, but I knew, don't go there at night. Mm-hmm. It's just too dangerous. There's a danger. I was more worried about, getting busted. Yeah. And there's also, it's not the greatest neighborhood. So anyway, I'd been going there for like a year. No problems. I would always go during the day. So I went there during the day, and it was like 3 p.m. And I noticed that there was, 157th and Broadway it's a busy community. Yeah. And it's buzzing. So I noticed there was a couple of cop cars sort of parked as if they had just pulled over, kind of, but they could be anywhere. Yeah. So I go in there, and I went up to the 9th floor, and I went up to that door that I knocked on so many times, and no one answers. I'm like, oh, shit. And I had like $300-400 on me. Oh. And so I'm like, oh, damn it. So I hit the button for the elevator. Mm-hmm. And when the elevator opens, there's 4 New York City cops in there. But I don't have nothing on me. Yeah. So I get in there. Mm-hmm. And I'm just nodding. And the sergeant goes, what are you doing? I go, I was going to visit my girlfriend. He goes, what's your girlfriend's name? Coke? I go, no. He goes, and he just looks at me. He goes, what's your girlfriend's name? He goes, I go, because you're buying Coke, right? I go, well, the people weren't home. And he goes, and he grabs me on around the collar. And what had happened was there had been a robbery in the building. So as the elevator was descending, He stops on each floor, and he's holding me, and he goes, "Was this the guy?" Like there were some people in the hallway.
Jeez.
Well, they knew I wasn't the guy.
Yeah.
So when we finally got to the bottom, we finally got to the lobby.
Yeah.
The guy goes, "Empty your pockets," and all this money. They got the money.
Yeah.
Now, no disrespect to the New York City Police Department, because it's a tough job. If there was maybe 2 of them, I don't think I would have left with my money.
Yeah.
But there was 4 of them. And the guy, so after I emptied, I could have had stuff down my pants. They didn't destroy it.
Yeah.
So the guy goes, "Put everything back in your pockets." He goes, "Let me tell you something. You want to know why this neighborhood's bad, my friend?" And I'm just,
Yeah.
"Because of you and the people that come up here. You're what makes this neighborhood bad, or a place that should be better. But it's because of you." He goes, "If I see you again," he goes, he goes, "I don't care if you have nothing. You're going downtown." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Get out of here," right? And the guy just pushes me, and that was my
Wow.
that was my lesson. And you know what I did?
What's that?
I waited 3 hours, went back
Oh no, Cary.
because I was sick.
Yeah.
And it's
Talked about it. It's like a disease.
it's a disease. Damn right, it's a disease. And so that's a little rundown. It's not a pretty picture, but it's important life lessons.
Right. Yeah, it really is. It's wow. Well, thank you for opening our eyes, and I'm sure some of that's still going on. I mean, I'm sure
it is.
I'm sure it's not maybe as obvious as it once was, and there's different ways to communicate now where you don't necessarily have to be on the street. Everything that's available on the internet, smartphones, all that fun stuff. So, man, they used to have to make you work for it, huh?
Yep. But that was the moral of the story. I'm the guy that makes this into what should be a good neighborhood, a not so good neighborhood.
I believe it. These rich white guys are coming in, and I mean, look at all the other things rich white guys have messed up over the years.
So yeah. Anyway, that was some strange, bizarre stories.
Yeah.
As we let 2020 go out the window,
Right.
and look for 2021 to come in with some good things.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it could be much worse of a year.
It can't be, and we just got a green light on another Ring of Honor bubble. So we already have a lot of episodes taped, a lot of extra content taped. We're going to have even more coming up in January in the next couple of weeks, so that's going to be fun. I will not be participating in any kind of recreational cocaine use ever.
No.
But when you pop in some diet soda tonight.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's my Coke now.
Yeah. The Coke Zero. I'll be rocking I like the Pepsi Zero Cherry. That's my drink of choice for
Really?
New Year's. Yeah.
Well,
get down on New Year's.
we want to thank everybody who's enjoyed listening to Last Stop Penn Station.
Yeah.
Please subscribe. Maybe we could get up to 100.
Yeah, we're getting close. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We're moving forward with that, and we're getting a lot of good feedback continuously. So we'd like to thank our new listeners, our returning listeners, everybody in between. 2020 was a hell of a year. It started out a lot of fun. We launched this, and things are looking brighter after a dry spell in 2020. So
That's right.
can't ask for any more than that. So for Cary, for AJ, Basan Creative, for Lamb Chop, who's been roaming around, I'm Ian Riccoboni. Thanks so much for listening. Happy New Year, everybody, from Last Stop Penn Station.
I thank God it stole the hammer, and the train it won't stop. Oh, no, it could slow down.
We hail you for listening to Last Stop Penn Station podcast. Rate, review, like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or at laststoppennstation.com.